I joked about another man one night while sitting in our living room, and I still remember the sound of my own voice breaking the silence in a way that felt harmless in the moment. I wanted to make him laugh, because he had been quiet all day with that distant look on his face, and I thought maybe if I teased him just a little he would soften like he used to whenever I tried to be playful. I had no idea that one careless remark would plant something so heavy between us. The moment the words left my lips, I saw his expression change in a way that chilled me to the bone. He did not laugh. He did not even frown. He simply froze, as though I had pulled the ground from beneath his feet. He stood without speaking, and the movement itself felt deliberate, slow, steady, unshakable. I thought maybe he was walking to the kitchen, or stepping into another room, but instead I watched him reach for his jacket hanging on the hook near the door. His silence cut through the air sharper than any words he could have spoken. He slipped his shoes on with calm hands that trembled ever so slightly. I asked him softly where he was going, but he did not reply. He gave me one look, one single glance that carried a storm I could not name. His eyes were not full of anger alone, they were full of lost disappointment, disbelief, and maybe even heartbreak. Then, without a sound, he opened the door and stepped out into the night, leaving me rooted to the couch, unable to breathe properly. I sat there waiting, certain he would return once his mind had cleared. I told myself he only needed a short walk to think. I kept glancing at the clock on the wall, listening for his footsteps to come back through the door, but minutes became hours, and the silence of the house grew unbearable. I called his phone again and again, at first with a calm voice, then with growing worry, then with panic. My messages shifted from teasing to pleading, and finally to desperate cries for him to come home, but there was no response, nothing but the hollow ring that mocked me with every attempt. I sat awake through the entire night, staring at the door with eyes that burned from exhaustion and fear. When morning came, I convinced myself I could find him on my own. I drove through streets we both knew so well. I circled the park where he often sat alone when he wanted space. I parked outside the little diner we used to visit in the late hours after long days, and I waited there hoping he might walk in, but there was nothing, no sign of him anywhere, and the world around me carried on as if he had never been part of it. My chest ached with a pressure I could not release, and every familiar corner felt like it was closing in on me. I returned home, but the emptiness followed me inside like a shadow I could not escape. Friends began asking questions within days, and I had no clear answers to give them. I told them it was a misunderstanding, and that he would be back soon. I told them he just needed time to think, but the more I repeated those words, the less I believed them myself. His family started calling as well, their voices sharp with suspicion and fear. They wanted explanations I could not provide. They asked what I had said, what I had done, and every time I confessed the truth, I felt smaller, weaker, more ashamed. The words I had spoken that night sounded more ridiculous each time I repeated them. How could such a small, reckless joke carry enough weight to end everything we had built together? Days turned into weeks, and the silence around me grew heavier with every sunrise. Nights were the worst because I could not escape the memory of that moment. I replayed it endlessly like a film stuck on repeat. I remembered the way his jaw tightened, the way his shoulders tensed, the way his hands trembled, as though my words were not a joke, but a wound. I wanted to reach back in time and stop myself before I spoke. I wanted to sit in silence with him, rather than fill the air with careless noise, but regret cannot undo what has already been spoken, and every night I lay awake, drowning in the memory. The house itself began to feel like a stranger to me. The bed was too wide and too cold without him beside me. The closet still carried the faint scent of his cologne, and every time I opened it my chest tightened. His shoes still sat lined against the wall untouched, and waiting. His books lay open on the table exactly where he had left them, as if he had only stepped away for a moment, but he never returned. Every room carried reminders of him. Reminders that pressed down on me until I could hardly breathe. I tried distracting myself with chores, with routines, with endless lists of tasks, but the reminders lived in every object, every sound, every silence. One evening as the sun dipped below the horizon, I found myself sitting on the porch staring at the street in front of our house. I imagined him walking back up the path, his shoulders finally relaxed, his eyes soft with forgiveness. I imagined him speaking my name in that gentle tone he used when everything was right between us. I waited until the stars came out, until the night grew colder, but the driveway remained empty and the road stayed still. The only sound was the wind moving through the trees. And in that moment the truth hit me with crushing force. He was never coming back. I broke down under the weight of that realization. My heart cracked open in a way I did not know was possible. I had lost him, not through betrayal, not through cruelty, not through violence, but through a thoughtless line delivered as a joke. My own carelessness had pushed him away completely, and there was no way to take it back. I wanted to scream, I wanted to run until my legs gave out. I wanted to erase the moment from existence, but nothing could change the fact that he had left, and he had chosen not to return. Now I live each day with that memory carved into me like a scar. People ask me what happened, and I say he left and never came back, but the truth is more painful than the words allow. The truth is I lost everything because I joked about another man. I destroyed my marriage with one careless attempt at humor, and I will carry that regret for the rest of my life.